He called me a plumber on the yacht I built with my own sweat. My daughter just watched, silent. They thought the old man was finished. They were about to find out this old builder still knew how to tear things down. Drip, drip, drip. The sound echoed in the quiet cabin. A tiny imperfection in the perfect silence of the Margaret. It grated on my nerves, not because it was loud, but because it shouldn't be there at all. The Margaret was my sanctuary, my 45 feet of polished mahogany and shining brass. She was perfect, or she was supposed to be. I sighed and set down my book. I knew the sound. Master bathroom sink. Probably a worn-out washer. A simple fix. I reached for the onboard toolkit I always kept meticulously organized. Order matters, especially when you feel chaos creeping in at the edges. I spent 5 years restoring her, piece by piece, a promise I made to my wife, the real Margaret, before she passed. This yacht was our retirement dream. Sailing the coast, coffee at sunrise. Now it was just me. She was my last tangible connection to the woman I loved, and I wouldn't let anything tarnish her memory. My name is Robert. If you're listening to this story, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It truly helps us keep these stories alive. For 40 years, I ran a construction business. I started with a borrowed hammer and a lot of grit. I understand foundations, the things you don't see that hold everything else up. I know how things are built, and more importantly, I know how they fall apart. I walked into the master bathroom. The Italian marble tile, the kind Margaret adored, felt cool against my knees. My hands, rough and calloused from decades of gripping tools, moved with practiced ease. They were scarred, stained, but capable. I didn't mind getting dirty. There was an honesty in manual labor, a satisfaction in making something broken whole again. I was just beginning to tighten the fitting when I heard them arrive. The rumble of the tender engine shattered the afternoon calm. Loud voices echoed across the water. My daughter Sarah and her husband Kevin. They were here for our annual weekend trip with my grandchildren, Ethan and Emma. And just like that, the peace was gone. My heart did a familiar, complicated twist. I loved Sarah more than anything. She had her mother's eyes, bright and curious. But ever since she married Kevin 5 years ago, a shadow had fallen over her. The brightness in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a constant, low-level anxiety. She seemed nervous, always biting her lower lip, always trying to measure up to his impossible standards. Kevin worked in finance, investment banking, venture capital. Something vague and expensive. It involved suits, high-pressure calls, and a lot of talk about assets and leverage. He didn't build, he acquired, and he was always acquiring. I heard their footsteps on the deck above. Captain Mike, a steady, reliable man I paid to manage the yacht, greeted them with his usual calm professionalism. "Welcome aboard, Mr. and Mrs. Davis. The children settled in all right?" Mike asked. "Is the air conditioning running at full capacity, Michael?" "It's absolutely boiling out here." Kevin's voice boomed, impatient, demanding. He always called Mike Michael. He knew Mike hated it. A small power play, a way of asserting dominance. I hated it too. "Yes, sir. The cabins are cooled to your requested temperature." "Where is Dad?" Sarah asked, her voice softer, almost timid. "He's below deck, ma'am," said something about attending to a leaky faucet. I heard Kevin scoff. A sharp, ugly sound. A leaky faucet? Of course he is. The contempt in his voice scraped against my spine. He made my passion sound like a pathetic hobby. I stood up, wiping the grease from my hands onto the rag I kept in my back pocket. I walked out of the bathroom and into the main salon just as they descended the stairs. Sarah rushed forward, her face breaking into a genuine smile. "Dad! It's so good to see you." "Good to see you too, sweetie," I said, holding her tight. She felt thinner than I remembered, more fragile. Over her shoulder I saw Kevin. He was already at the bar, pouring himself a generous measure of my best scotch. He hadn't even said hello. "Robert," he finally said, turning around. White linen trousers, navy blazer. Despite the heat, he looked like he had stepped out of a catalog. His eyes immediately zeroed in on the rag in my hand, and the smudge of grease I hadn't realized was on my cheek. "Always busy, aren't you? Always tinkering." "Just a small repair," I said evenly.
I folded the rag, put it back in my pocket. I wasn't going to apologize for taking care of my own boat. Kevin chuckled. A dry, dismissive sound that always set my teeth on edge. A small repair. Robert, you pay people to do that now. He took a slow sip of scotch, savoring it. My scotch.
You're retired. You shouldn't be crawling around under sinks like a common laborer. The word hung in the air. Laborer, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. The first jab. But he wasn't done. Frankly, it's embarrassing. Kevin continued, gesturing with his glass. What if someone from the yacht club saw you, the owner of a magnificent vessel like this, playing handyman? It sends the wrong message, Robert. It suggests we can't afford the staff. It was an old argument, a constant attack on my background, my identity. I like fixing things, Kevin. It keeps me sharp. You know that. And affordability isn't the issue. There's a difference between a hobby and acting like the hired help, Kevin retorted. He swirled the ice in his glass. The sound was loud in the sudden silence. He checked his expensive watch. A nervous tick I'd noticed lately. He seemed jittery. You need to respect the station you've achieved. Kevin, please, Sarah warned. She shot him a nervous look, biting that lower lip again. We just got here. Let's just relax. Kevin ignored her. He walked over to the large panoramic window, overlooking the clear blue water of the bay. This boat, he sighed, shaking his head with exaggerated weariness. She is beautiful. I'll grant you that. But she's a dinosaur, Robert. A dinosaur. My Margaret, here we go again. A money pit, he continued, turning to face me. The upkeep, the docking fees, the insurance, the fuel costs. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's financial bleeding. We enjoy it, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I walked to the galley, started a pot of coffee. The kids love it. Ethan was asking about the fishing gear all week. The kids would also love having their college funds fully secured against market volatility. Kevin said sharply. His tone shifted. This wasn't just the usual complaining. This felt targeted, urgent. Which brings me to the main reason I wanted to talk to you this weekend, Robert. I've been speaking with Mr. Rowland. Harrison. A high-end yacht broker. Kevin, my stomach tightened. Kevin sat down on the plush leather sofa, crossed his legs confidently. The boardroom posture. It's time to be realistic, Robert. Harrison agrees the timing is perfect. He paused for effect. It's time to sell the Margaret. The silence in the cabin was heavy, broken by the whirring of the coffee machine. Sell the Margaret? It was unthinkable, like asking me to sell a part of my soul, the last piece of my wife. I'm not selling the boat, Kevin, I said firmly. My back was turned to him. I measured the coffee grounds. My hands were surprisingly steady. Hear me out, Kevin insisted. His voice adopted that smooth, persuasive tone I despised. The salesman pitch. The market for classic yachts is incredibly high. Harrison already has interested buyers. We could get a fantastic price, far more than you put into the restoration. He paused, letting the numbers hang in the air. And I have an opportunity, Robert. A brilliant investment opportunity. Ground floor. Something big with David Chen. David Chen, a name Kevin often boasted about. A high-risk, high-reward investor. Kevin stood up, pacing now, excited by his own brilliance. If you liquidated this asset and invested the capital with my firm, the returns would be astronomical. We're talking double, maybe triple, your money in 5 years. Guaranteed. 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 That word always made me suspicious. I spent my life building tangible things. Wood, steel, concrete. Kevin's world of guarantees felt like smoke and mirrors. I didn't trust it, and I didn't trust him. I appreciate the advice, Kevin. But my finances are fine. The boat stays. I turned around, holding 2 mugs of coffee. I offered one to Sarah. She took it with a grateful, shaky hand. Kevin slammed his scotch glass down on the mahogany table. The sudden violence made Sarah jump. Coffee sloshed over the rim of her mug. Fine, Kevin shouted. The mask of the charming financier slipped completely, revealing the ugly impatience underneath. Robert, you're sitting on millions of dollars that are doing nothing but floating in the water, depreciating every day. His face was flushed red. It's irresponsible. Frankly, it's selfish. That money belongs to the family. To Sarah's future, this was the first major betrayal. He wasn't asking. He felt entitled. He felt it was already his. "This is my boat. I earned it," I said, my voice rising slightly, the anger beginning to simmer, and Sarah's future is secure. "I set up a trust for her and the children years ago. A trust, a conservative, low-yield trust," Kevin yelled. He threw his hands up in exasperation. "I'm trying to protect your legacy, Robert. I'm trying to maximize your assets, to ensure Sarah and the children live the life they deserve." "The life you think they deserve," I countered, my voice hardening. Sarah stepped between us, her face pale. "Please, both of you, stop. The children will hear you." She looked at Kevin, pleading, "Can we just have a nice weekend? Please." Kevin looked at her. It wasn't a look of love, it was disdain. It chilled me to the bone. A nice weekend? He turned the disdain on her. "Sarah, your father is being stubborn and short-sighted. He doesn't understand how the world works anymore." He turned back to me, his eyes cold and hard. He's stuck in the past, clinging to this outdated relic. He was talking about the boat, but he was looking at me. "You built houses, Robert. Great. Congratulations," he sneered. "But the world is run by finance now. Bricks and mortar are obsolete." He leaned in. "Money makes money, not hammers and saws." The words were meant to destroy me, to erase my entire life's work. I looked at my daughter. She was biting her lip, tears welling in her eyes. She hated conflict, but she didn't defend me. She never did when Kevin got like this. She just shrunk into herself, trying to disappear. It broke my heart to see her so cowed, so broken by him. The tension in the salon was thick, suffocating. Just then, I noticed something on the floor near the bathroom door. A small puddle of water forming on the expensive teak wood flooring. The faucet. I must not have tightened the fitting enough in my haste. "Excuse me," I muttered. I grabbed my wrench from the toolkit again. I needed a moment away from Kevin's arrogance. I needed to breathe. I went back into the bathroom. The drip was now a steady stream. The connection was looser than I thought. I knelt down, started working on the fitting again. I was angry, frustrated by the conversation, by Kevin's disrespect, by Sarah's silence. My hands were shaking with suppressed rage. I applied too much pressure, trying to force the threads together. Crack. The sound was loud in the small space. The old pipe, weakened by years of use, burst under the strain. Water sprayed everywhere. Incredible force, soaking my shirt, hitting the ceiling, splashing against the mirrors. "Dad, what happened? What was that noise?" Sarah called out. Her voice panicked. "Damn it," I yelled, scrambling to find the shut-off valve under the sink. My fingers fumbled with the stiff metal knob, slippery with water. Finally, I managed to turn it. The spray stopped abruptly, the sudden silence ringing in my ears. But the damage was done. The bathroom floor was covered in an inch of water, and it was rapidly flowing out into the salon. Kevin appeared at the door, a look of utter contempt on his face. He surveyed the scene. The broken pipe, the flooded floor, and me, drenched and kneeling in the mess. Holding a wrench. "Unbelievable," he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Absolutely unbelievable." He shook his head, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "You can't even fix a simple leak without causing a disaster." He stepped closer, towering over me. I remained kneeling, the water soaking through my jeans. "This isn't one of your cheap construction sites, Robert. This is a luxury yacht. This requires professionals, not amateurs. You see?" he said, gesturing around the flooded room. "This is what I mean. You're out of your depth. You don't belong in this world. You try to help and you just break things." He leaned down, his face inches from mine, his voice low and menacing. "Plumbers have no place here." The insult hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just about the pipe. It was about everything. The years of disrespect, the constant dismissal of my life's work, the utter lack of gratitude. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The quiet resentment I had been suppressing for years sharpened into something colder. something harder. The simmering anger turned into cold, clear resolve. I didn't shout. I didn't lose my temper. I just stared at him, holding his gaze, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. Until he looked away first, his arrogance momentarily faltering under the weight of my silent fury. I saw it then, a flicker of fear in his eyes. The rest of the day was strained. The atmosphere on the yacht heavy and oppressive. I cleaned up the mess in the bathroom, meticulously mopping up the water. I refused Captain Mike's offer of help. I needed to do it myself. I needed to reclaim my space. My dignity. I temporarily patched the pipe. It would hold. For now, at dinner in the formal dining area, Kevin was in a foul mood. He had changed into another expensive outfit. But his temper remained dark. He complained about the food Mike prepared, criticized the wine selection, bemoaned the slow internet connection. He was agitated, checking his phone constantly under the table. He then turned his attention to the yacht's decor. "We really need to modernize this boat, Robert," he said, looking around the salon with distaste. The rich mahogany paneling, the intricate carvings I had spent months restoring by hand. All of it offended his modern sensibilities. "This dark wood is so depressing. It feels like a museum." He gestured wildly with his fork. "We should paint everything white. Maybe some light gray. Open up the space. Bring it into the 21st century." Harrison mentioned a designer who could do wonders. He was already planning the renovation of the boat he didn't own. I looked at the beautiful wood, remembering the hours Margaret and I spent planning. "The wood stays," I said quietly, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "It's not your decision alone, Robert," Kevin retorted. He gestured with his wine glass, sloshing the red liquid dangerously close to the edge. "Sarah is your daughter. She should have a say in how this boat looks." He paused, a calculating look in his eyes. "It's technically her inheritance, after all." Inheritance. He made it sound like I was already dead. Sarah looked down at her plate, pushing her food around, saying nothing. "I like the wood, Kevin," she murmured, barely audible, afraid to contradict him. "Of course you do," Kevin snapped, his patience gone. "You're just as sentimental as your father. That's the problem with this family." He slammed his glass down on the table. Wine spilled onto the white tablecloth, a dark stain spreading rapidly. "Too much emotion, not enough logic. Sentimentality doesn't pay the bills, Sarah. It doesn't generate returns." The meal continued in near silence. The tension was making me nauseous. This was my breaking point. I couldn't stand the sight of him, sitting at my table, eating my food, while criticizing everything I held dear. After dinner, I tried to talk to Sarah alone. The children were watching a movie in their cabin. Kevin had gone up to the top deck to make a phone call. He was always making phone calls. We stood on the stern, looking at the stars. The gentle rocking of the boat was usually soothing. Tonight, it felt ominous. The air felt charged, like the atmosphere before a storm.
"Sarah, we need to talk about Kevin," I started, keeping my voice low.
"Dad, please don't," she pleaded, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Even though the night was warm, she was shivering. "He's just stressed. Work has been difficult lately. The markets are volatile. He doesn't mean the things he says. There's no excuse for how he treats me, Sarah," I said, the hurt creeping into my voice, unable to keep it hidden any longer. The disrespect, the insults, and this constant pressure to sell the boat. It's not right. I turned to face her. The moonlight illuminated the sadness in her eyes. "This boat is my home. It's all I have left of your mother. I know, Dad, but—" She hesitated, looking away, unable to meet my eyes. "He thinks he's doing the right thing. He wants the best for us. For the children." "Is this the best?" I asked, gesturing around the magnificent yacht, my sanctuary, which now felt like a prison. Living in fear of his temper, walking on eggshells, that's not the life I wanted for you. Before Sarah could respond, Kevin appeared from the shadows, his footsteps silent on the teak deck.
"He must have finished his call, overheard us."
"What are you two whispering about?" he demanded, his tone sharp and suspicious. He looked more agitated than before, his eyes darting nervously between us. He checked his watch again. Just talking, I said, turning to face him, instinctively moving to shield Sarah from his anger. Good, Kevin said, stepping between us, breaking the connection, because we need to finalize our discussion about the family finances. As a unit, he draped his arm around Sarah's shoulder, pulling her close to him. It looked less like affection and more like possession. He was staking his claim, asserting his dominance. We'll talk more tomorrow, Robert, he said, his voice tight. I have the papers Harrison drew up for you to review. Papers. The word hung in the air like a threat. He was moving forward without my consent. I went to bed that night with a heavy heart, a growing sense of dread. I lay awake for hours, listening to the sounds of the boat, the water lapping against the hull, the creaking of the wood. I thought about Margaret, the sacrifices we made, the risks I took to build my business from the ground up. I had worked hard for everything I had, and now this man, this parasite who had married into my family, was trying to take it all away, dismantling my life piece by piece, all while claiming he was doing it for their benefit. I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. This time, Kevin wasn't just suggesting, he was demanding, and I had a terrible feeling he wasn't going to take no for an answer. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The sky was just beginning to light, shades of pink and orange painting the horizon. I couldn't sleep. I needed coffee. I needed to think. I walked quietly through the salon towards the galley, the silence of the boat amplifying the turmoil in my mind. As I passed the small office cabin near the stern, I heard a voice. It was Kevin. He was on the phone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I was about to walk away, but the intensity of his voice stopped me. It was hushed, but frantic, laced with a desperation I had never heard before. The door was slightly ajar. I could see him pacing the small space, his face pale and sweaty, his hands trembling. I don't care what you have to do, David. Just get me the extension, Kevin hissed into the phone. David Chen, the investor. The market shifted, unexpectedly, Kevin continued, his voice rising. It wasn't my fault. The algorithms didn't predict the downturn. I was leveraged, yes, but the projections were solid. Everyone was doing it. Leveraged. The word hit me hard. He had gambled. Big time. There was a pause. I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall. Hidden in the shadows of the hallway, my heart pounded in my chest. Then Kevin continued, his voice cracking under the pressure. I know the deadline is today. David, I know how much is at stake, but I have the capital coming. I just need a few more hours. 12 hours. That's all I ask. Please. Today, the deadline was today. The person on the other end of the line was clearly not being cooperative. It's secured, Kevin insisted, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his lie. I'm liquidating a major asset. A yacht. A classic. It's worth millions. My blood ran cold. He was talking about the Margaret. The paperwork is being finalized with Harrison as we speak. He lied smoothly. The owner is elderly, sentimental. It took some convincing, but it's a done deal. The funds will be transferred by close of business today. He wasn't just advising me to sell it. He was counting on it. He'd already promised the money. He'd already spent it. If I don't get this money, I'm ruined, Kevin whispered. The sound raw and terrified. The firm will collapse. The firm will collapse. The investors will sue. I'll lose everything. My career, my reputation, everything. He choked back a sob. You have to understand, David, this isn't just about the money. It's about survival. Suddenly, everything made sense. The constant pressure, the increasing desperation, the explosive anger, the nervous energy. Kevin wasn't just arrogant. He wasn't just greedy. He was drowning. He had made reckless gambles, and he was trying to use me as a lifeline, willing to pull me under, to sacrifice my memories, my legacy, to save himself. This was the deeper betrayal. The realization hit me like a physical blow, winding me. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes, hot and sharp, but also a fleeting moment of pity. He was desperate. Pathetic. But the pity evaporated quickly, replaced by a cold, hard reality. He was also deceitful and cruel. He had lied to me, manipulated me, used my daughter and grandchildren as leverage. He had underestimated me, seeing me only as an old sentimental fool, a plumber who had no place in his sophisticated world. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. I had to protect Sarah, the kids, and Arbit's memory. I had to stop him. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe right now. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. I found Sarah in the galley, making breakfast for Ethan and Emma. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the small space, a facade of normalcy in the midst of the unfolding crisis. "Sarah, we need to talk. Now," I said, my voice low and urgent, pulling her aside, away from the children's ears. She looked up, startled by my tone. "Dad, what's wrong? You look pale. Are you all right?" "I overheard Kevin on the phone with David Chen," I said. The words tumbled out in a rush. "His firm is failing. He's deeply in debt. He needs the money from the yacht to bail himself out." "The deadline is today." Sarah froze, the spatula hovering over the pan. Her face went ashen. "Failing? What do you mean, failing?" "He just closed a huge deal last month. He told me we were set for the year. He's been lying to you, Sarah. He's been lying to everyone. He's in serious trouble. He's planning to sell the Margaret today. He's already promised the money." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, spilling down her cheeks. "I knew he was struggling," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I knew things were tight, but I didn't know it was this bad." She looked down, ashamed. "He promised he would fix it. He's desperate, Sarah, and desperate men do dangerous things. He's trying to steal my boat to cover his mistakes." Sarah buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Oh God," she cried, "what are we going to do?" Then she revealed the depth of the disaster. "It was worse than I thought. Our house, the kids' college funds, everything is tied up in his firm." My heart stopped. "He convinced me to move all our savings there," she continued, the words choked with tears. "Even the trust you set up. He said he could get better returns. The trust, the untouchable safety net I had established for her. He had access to that, too?" The betrayal was deeper than I imagined. He hadn't just ruined himself. He had ruined her, completely. She looked at me, her eyes wide with panic and pleading, the realization of the impending disaster hitting her full force. "You have to help him, Dad. Please." I stared at her, stunned. "Sell the boat. Save our family. We'll lose everything if you don't." The request felt like a betrayal in itself. She was asking me to sacrifice the last piece of her mother, to save the man who had systematically destroyed her life, the man who had treated me with nothing but contempt. "Sarah, I can't do that," I said, shaking my head, the sadness overwhelming me. "The Margaret is not for sale, and I will not enable his deceit." "But Dad, you don't understand," she cried, grabbing my arm, her grip surprisingly strong, her desperation mirroring Kevin's. "We'll be ruined. We'll be homeless. Think of the children." "I am thinking of the children," I said, my voice hardening. My transformation had begun. I was done being passive. "I am thinking about the example we set for them." I pulled my arm away. "Kevin made bad decisions. He lied to you. He broke your trust. He has to face the consequences." I looked into her eyes, trying to make her understand. "I will not sacrifice your mother's memory to clean up his mess. I will help you, I will support you, but I will not save him." I walked away, leaving her sobbing in the galley. I needed air. I needed a plan. I needed to take control. I went to my cabin and picked up the phone. I dialed a number I hadn't used in a while, Eleanor Vance. My estate lawyer, sharp as a tack and utterly ruthless. "Eleanor, it's Robert," I said when she answered. "Robert, it's been a while. Everything all right?" Her voice was warm but professional. "I need some advice, and possibly immediate action." I said, keeping my voice low. Kevin has accessed Sarah's trust. It's tied up in his failing firm. He's trying to force the sale of my yacht to cover his debts. Today, there was a brief silence on the line. When Eleanor spoke again, her voice was ice cold. That constitutes fraud and undue influence, Robert. We can file an injunction, freeze his assets. We can destroy him. A wave of relief washed over me. I wasn't alone in this fight. What do you need me to do? I asked. Do not sign anything. Document every threat and ensure your physical safety, Eleanor said firmly. I'll start the paperwork now. We'll hit him before close of business. I hung up, knowing I had backup grounded me. The fear was replaced by determination. Later that morning, Kevin cornered me on the deck. His face was drawn and pale, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man on the edge of a precipice. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, ugly desperation.
Robert, we need to talk, he said.
His voice strained, trying to maintain a semblance of control. It's time to finalize the sale. Harrison is waiting for the documents. I know about your firm, Kevin, I said quietly, looking out at the horizon. I know about the deadline with David Chen. Kevin flinched as if I had struck him. He staggered back a step, his composure crumbling. What do you know? What did Sarah tell you? I know you're desperate. I know you need the money. I know you've already promised it. Kevin ran a shaky hand through his perfectly styled hair, now disheveled and greasy. All right, fine. You know, he tried to sound reasonable. So you understand the gravity of the situation. You understand why I need you to sell. It's the only way. There's no alternative. I'm not selling the boat, I repeated. My voice calm and steady, the finality of the decision settling deep within me. Kevin's eyes widened in disbelief. Robert, you have to. You have no choice. My entire future is on the line. Sarah's future. Everything we've built. Everything you've destroyed, I corrected him. I turned to face him, letting him see the resolve in my eyes. I'll help Sarah. And the kids. I'll make sure they are taken care of. In fact, my lawyer, Eleanor Vance, is currently ensuring their financial safety. The mention of a lawyer made Kevin pale. Eleanor Vance, he whispered. He knew her reputation. That's right, I said. But I will not bail you out. Kevin laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that bordered on hysteria. A lawyer? You think that changes anything? Robert, I need millions today. This is an insult. You are sentencing us to ruin. It's all I'm willing to offer, I said firmly. Kevin's face twisted in rage. The mask finally slipped completely, revealing the monster underneath. He stepped closer, invading my space, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper, the smell of stale scotch in his breath. Listen to me, old man. You will sell this boat. You will sign the papers. Or swear to God, I will make your life a living hell. Are you threatening me? I asked, standing my ground, refusing to be intimidated by his empty bravado. I'm promising you, Kevin spat, his eyes blazing with hatred. If you don't help me, if you let me fall, I will take everyone down with me. He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with venom. I will ensure you never see Sarah or your grandchildren again. I'll take them away from you. I'll move them across the country. The cruelty was breathtaking. I'll tell the courts you're mentally unfit, he continued, spitting the words at me, that you're delusional, a danger to the children. I'll drag your name, your reputation, everything you hold dear, through the mud until there's nothing left. He was willing to destroy my relationship with them, to use them as weapons, to save his own skin. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a weak, desperate, terrified man who had nothing left to lose. A cornered animal, lashing out blindly. You do what you have to do, Kevin, I said, my voice calm, though my heart was breaking at the thought of losing my grandchildren. But I'm not selling the Margaret. I walked away, leaving him trembling with rage and disbelief on the deck. I found Captain Mike in the wheelhouse, with Jensen, the young deckhand. Reviewing charts, Mike was loyal. Jensen was a good kid. I needed them both. Mike, Jensen, I need to talk to you, I said, closing the door behind me. Everything all right, Robert? Mike asked, his face etched with concern. No, it's Kevin. He's crossed the line. He's threatening to take my grandchildren away if I don't sell the boat. Mike's face hardened. Jensen looked shocked. He said, "What?" Mike growled. "That bastard." He looked at Jensen. Jensen overheard him screaming on the phone earlier. Something about David Chen pulling the plug. He's unstable, Robert. Desperate men do desperate things. I need you both to be prepared, I said. Things are about to get ugly. I need you to witness what happens next. I need you to be ready to take him ashore. We're here for you, Robert, Mike said firmly, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Jensen nodded vigorously. This is your boat? Your rules? I went back to my cabin. I sat down at the small desk, looked at the picture of Margaret, her smiling face, her bright eyes full of love and strength. What should I do, Maggie? I whispered. I knew what she would say. Stand up for yourself. Protect what's ours. Protect our daughter, even from herself. I took a deep breath. The resolve solidified within me. I knew what I had to do. It was time to fix this, once and for all. I went back to the master bathroom. The temporary patch needed a permanent repair. I picked up my tools. I needed the familiarity of the task, the clarity it brought to my mind. I carefully removed the broken section of the pipe, measuring and cutting a new piece. My hands were steady, my movements precise. I was a builder. I fixed things. I solved problems. I was just tightening the final fitting, the new pipe securely in place. When Kevin appeared at the door, he was holding a stack of papers. The documents, from Harrison. He looked frantic, his eyes wild, his movements jerky. The deadline was approaching. David Chen was calling. What are you doing? He demanded, his voice sharp and high-pitched, echoing in the small space. Are you still messing around with that pipe? Fixing the tap, I said, not looking up, focusing on the task at hand, applying the final turn of the wrench. I told you to leave that alone, Kevin shouted, stepping into the bathroom, waving the papers in my face. We have more important things to discuss. My deadline is in less than an hour. Harrison has the buyer on the phone. Shen is waiting for the wire confirmation. He was spiraling, losing control. He thrust the papers at me. These are the transfer papers for the yacht. The buyer agreed to the price. They are wiring the funds as we speak. I need you to sign them. Nah, no more stalling. I slowly stood up, wiping my hands on the rag. I looked at the papers, the legal jargon blurring before my eyes. Then I looked at Kevin, at the desperation in his face, the greed in his eyes. I'm not signing anything, I said quietly, the words falling heavily in the silence. Kevin's face turned purple with rage. He looked like he was about to have a stroke. You stubborn old fool, you're going to ruin us all, he screamed. Do you want your daughter and grandchildren to be homeless? Do you want them to suffer because of your selfish pride, because of this stupid boat? He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong, digging his fingers into my skin. His face contorted in a mask of fury. Sign the papers, Robert. Sign them now. I pulled my arm away, standing tall, towering over him now, my presence filling the small space. I looked him straight in the eyes. The climax was here. I told you yesterday, Kevin, I said, my voice clear and strong, resonating with power and authority. Plumbers have no place here. Kevin sneered, his lip curling in disgust, his arrogance momentarily resurfacing one last time. That's right, they don't, and neither do you. He jabbed a finger at my chest. This is my world now, my family, my rules. Now sign the damn papers before I take that wrench in. I took a step closer to him. The air in the small bathroom crackled with tension. Captain Mike and Jensen appeared in the doorway behind Kevin, silent and watchful. Their presence a silent threat. You misunderstood me, Kevin, I said. My voice cold as steel. I wasn't talking about myself. I paused, letting the words hang in the air, savoring the moment. This is my yacht. Kevin stared at me, confused, the anger momentarily replaced by bewilderment. And you, I continued, my voice ringing with an authority I hadn't used in years, have no place on it. Kevin's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked stunned, as if I had slapped him across the face. The reality of the situation finally dawned on him. "I want you off my boat, Kevin," I said. "Now. You can't kick me out," Kevin sputtered, finally finding his voice, the panic rising in his tone, the realization of his defeat hitting him hard. "I'm your son-in-law." Sarah. "Not anymore," I said. "Not in my eyes. You forfeited that right when you threatened my family. And when you stole from them." I walked past him, out of the bathroom and into the salon. Sarah was there, holding Emma. Ethan was playing on the floor. She must have heard the shouting. "Dad, what's going on?" Sarah asked, looking alarmed, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Kevin rushed out of the bathroom, his face contorted in rage and disbelief. "Your father has lost his mind. He's kicking me off the boat. He's choosing this hunk of wood over his own flesh and blood. He's destroying our family." "Kevin, pack your bags," I said calmly, my voice steady. "Captain Mike will take you ashore." "Sarah, tell him," Kevin shouted, turning to his wife, desperate for an ally, for someone to save him. "Tell him he can't do this. Think of the children. Think of our future." Sarah looked at me, her eyes searching my face, seeing the strength and resolve there. Then she looked at Kevin, really looked at him. Tears streamed down her face. She was trembling, but her eyes were clear. The fog had lifted. She saw him now. The facade stripped away, revealing the ugliness underneath. "He's right, Kevin," she whispered, her voice breaking, but firm. "You have to go." Kevin stared at her in disbelief, the betrayal cutting deep. "What? Sarah, I'm your husband. After everything I've done for you, the life I've given you, everything you've done for me," Sarah cried, clutching Emma tighter, her voice rising in anger. "You threatened my father. You tried to steal his dream, his memories of my mother." She took a step towards him, defiant. "You lied to me. You gambled away our future. You were willing to take my children away from their grandfather." She took a deep breath, her voice gaining strength, the brightness returning to her eyes. "I can't do this anymore, Kevin. I won't. I want a divorce." Kevin staggered back, as if struck. He looked from Sarah to me, his eyes wide with shock and betrayal. He realized he had lost, completely and utterly. He had pushed too hard, gone too far. The game was over. Just then, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. David Chen. He turned even paler. He didn't answer it. "You'll regret this," he spat, pointing a shaking finger at Sarah. "You'll be nothing without me. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've thrown away." "I'd rather be nothing than be with you," Sarah replied, her voice cold and steady. Kevin glared at me one last time, his eyes filled with impotent rage and hatred. Then he turned and stormed out of the salon, heading towards his cabin to pack his expensive empty suits. A few minutes later, I stood on the deck with Sarah and the grandchildren. We watched as the tender pulled away, carrying Kevin and his luggage back to shore. He didn't look back. The roar of the engine faded, leaving a profound, cleansing silence in its wake. The tension that had suffocated the boat for days was gone, evaporated into the clear blue sky. It was replaced by a sense of peace, but also a deep aching sadness for the broken dreams and the difficult road ahead. Sarah leaned against me, burying her face in my shoulder, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she cried, the words muffled against my shirt. "I was so blind. I was so caught up in the lifestyle, the illusion he created. I should have stood up to him sooner. I should have protected you." "It's okay, sweetie," I said, stroking her hair, holding her tight, just like I used to when she was a little girl. He was convincing. He fooled us all. But you did the right thing. You protected what truly matters. I looked at Ethan and Emma, playing happily on the deck, already forgetting the shadow that had passed over them. They were safe. Sarah was safe. That's all that mattered. Eleanor called later that afternoon. Kevin's assets were frozen. The process of reclaiming the trust money had begun. It would be a long fight, but we would win. I looked out at the horizon, the sun sparkling on the clear blue water. The Margaret bobbed gently in the waves, solid and strong, resilient. She was more than just a boat. She was a symbol of everything I had built, everything I stood for: hard work, integrity, resilience, the foundation of a life well lived. I thought about what Kevin had said, that plumbers had no place here, that bricks and mortar were obsolete. He couldn't have been more wrong. This world, this boat, everything I had was built by plumbers, carpenters, builders, people who worked with their hands, who understood the true value of things, not just the price tag, people who knew how to build things that lasted. I put my arm around Sarah, pulling her close. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be lawyers, financial fallout, emotional wreckage to clear, but we would face it together. We'll be okay, I said, looking at the horizon. The future uncertain, but full of possibility. The true legacy wasn't the money, the assets, the portfolio. It wasn't the yacht. It was the strength I had passed down to my daughter. The strength to recognize the truth, to stand up for what was right, to protect what truly mattered, the strength to rebuild when everything else falls apart. And as we stood there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the sea, the warm sun on our faces, I knew that Margaret was smiling down on us. We had weathered the storm, we were still afloat, and we were sailing home. Thanks for listening. Please rate this story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe.